Hey, once again, you've taken the elevator and found yourself here in Hella Vella, where we talk about all things to do with the new exciting serial reading platform brought to you by Amazon. And today we're here with Laurie Brandon, and she is author of The Operator's Daughter. And I'm very excited to talk to her today. We've been in a reading group together. It's very cool. And I look forward to reading her serial. Now, this is a little bit unusual. I have not read her serial yet. So we're going to learn all about it here when we talk to her. So good morning, Laurie. How you doing?
Good morning. I'm doing just fine. Again, I've got my puppy by my side. I've got my security blanket. We have a COVID puppy, so we do. He's 2.5 now, and completely spoiled rotten. You might also see a few tuxedo cats make an appearance along the back couch here. They discover I'm online. I can guarantee you that at least one of them will probably make an appearance.
Hey, if you were attempting to use the keyboard, they definitely show up and flop themselves on that.
They do. I usually have the retriever on the right, and then one of the cats on the left while I'm writing away in the evenings. I am not a full-time writer. I'm a new writer. Again, you say you haven't read my Vella. Well, you're in good company. I don't think many people have read my Vella yet.
Yes,
but again, my Vella series is An Operator's Daughter, and it basically chronicles the journal of a Navy brat. She's not just an ordinary Navy brat, though. Her father was a Navy SEAL. And so she grew up in the world of special operations. And it's a little different than just being the daughter or the family members of active duty military. But she grew up keeping secrets and within a community that is very supportive of one another. But again, it's all very much keeping confidences. And so she's learned very early on in her life that there are things you don't talk about, and you have to be rather resilient to be able to survive it. So again, my main character, her name is Ashton McAllister, and as she has grown up in the last few years, her adventures have taken on, I guess you could say, some very adult content from what goes from part 1 to part 2 to part 3. And I'm still very much interested in her and the characters I've surrounded her with. So I'll continue with that, along with some other projects coming up.
Well, you've just summed up the whole damn thing.
I did. Sorry.
Quit that.
We can go into a little more depth of me and
we got to do it.
And
we got to do it, because I want to know what everybody wants to know that watches these shows is, when did you get started writing? When did it start for you?
When did it start for me? I guess in some ways I've been writing something all of my life. I was the kid who loved to play school, which I guess will probably betray my age, because yes, when I was a kid, we did play school, and there was always at least one child in the neighborhood who wanted to be the teacher, and that was not me. I can guarantee you that was not me. I was quite happy to be the perfect student, to do my homework, and I was not only that kind of a student, but I once had my mother get so angry to me. I came home and told her I needed to do a book report. And so we hauled ourselves down to the Renton Library, and that library is unique because it actually is over the river in Renton, Washington, over the Cedar River. And we spent a good 2 hours finding what I needed and checking out the books and going home and writing. And then I had to tell her that, honestly, I was just bored in school. And the book report was my idea to keep me busy. So
oh my God,
that's me. I was one of the good kids. I was very much, again, one who pushed myself in school, and with everything except for math. Math was the one area that was a big challenge for me. But the rest of it, yes, fascinated by history, fascinated by literature, fascinated by some science, unless it involves dissecting something, and then no, I'm not so happy.
Yeah, we sound very similar there. I went into honors chemistry just to avoid dissecting a frog. I
think I
chemistry.
did the frog and the fetal pig, and I'm still traumatized, quite honestly.
You did both?
Oh yes, we got stuck with both, and I think that the one thing that in biology that year as sophomore in high school is we were supposed to type our own blood, which meant we had to prick our fingers, and I was afraid to do it. I didn't really want to see the side of my own blood, so I let somebody else do it, and I promptly passed out. And I guess you could say that eliminated any desire for a career in healthcare. I left that to my sister. She's the registered nurse. Her oldest daughter now is just starting her surgical residency in Michigan. So we have finally a doctor in the family, and we're very proud of her. But again, along with that, my very, very talented niece is the cover artist for my Vellas. And
is that right?
She is. So
very cool.
She's the talent behind them for me, and she'll be called upon again for part 4 and some other Vella projects that I have coming up. So
that's wonderful.
I'm excited about that. It's been very much a supportive family environment for me to get going on this.
That is really wonderful. I'm glad to hear that. I'm glad to hear that, because it's not always the case, of course. I've talked to writers whose families sit around the dinner table and tell them they need to get a real job, you know, and that doesn't do any good. And I know that from experience. So
well, I have the day job, you see. Again, I'm a new writer, so this is my side hustle. Like, I know that it's many writers out there, especially in the Kindle Vella platform, this is a side hustle. I'm hopeful that by the time I'm able to retire in some time, 7, 8, 10 years, that this will be something that provides a good income for me. So that is the goal. I think that's always a writer's goal, is to earn a living from their craft, but I do have the day job. But this Vella came out of the fact that I didn't have a day job for a while. I've done a lot of different things in my life. I put myself through college working as a paralegal for labor relations consulting firms, for family law and personal injury. And so that was the work inside an office building and do the job, and then work pretty much full time while I was going to school full time at the University of Washington. So I was a communications major and with a social science emphasis in sociology, criminal justice.
I got my communications degree from UW, and my second major was sociology.
Sociology, yes, you had to pick one.
Yeah.
Yes, so
yeah, so I got a degree in both.
Right, and I'm very close to having the second degree in sociology, but didn't stick around one more quarter to do it. I was fortunate to through one of my many internships in television production to be hired to work at Como Television while I was still in college.
Right.
And so I worked behind the scenes. I was, first of all, a floor director or stage manager, whatever you want to call it. I moved from there to doing graphics to, yes, doing some directing of the morning newscasts. But when I started working at Como Television, it would take almost 80 people to put on a single news broadcast. And now for the production behind the scenes staff, you are lucky if you have 4 to 6. So it's an industry that contracted as the technology grew. That doesn't mean that they still don't need the folks doing it. And again, in our market, the Seattle market, you'll often see a lot of mistakes on the air. That was something I would say that, again, when I was working in TV, a mistake was not tolerated. But then they were throwing a lot of people at the problem. They had real camera operators back then and real graphics operators back then, and instead of, again, having everybody multitask. So again, I was fortunate that I went straight from college to working at Como, and did that until, I guess I was there for about 6 or 7 years. And then I started freelancing and doing mostly sports television production, where I would travel and do graphics primarily for football games and baseball games and hockey and sometimes even golf.
What year about was this?
I started at Como in 1984-85, that school year. I graduated from the UW in 87. I'd also had internships at King and Cairo Television along the way. So again, I'm betraying my age here, but again, that's when I worked in TV, was that point in time. And then again, the fallback was always between sports seasons was to go do some legal work. I worked for different law firms, again, usually so their staff could take summer time off with their kids. And that again was a great way to kind of build up the stories in your head in different situations.
Wow. Wowzers. Okay.
And then from there, I also taught skiing full time up at Crystal Mountain for many seasons. I'm a full cert ski instructor. I haven't skied for many years now because, again, after you ski for so many years, your joints tend to be a little bone on bone, so it's a little painful. But yes, there's probably a generation of children who are now in their 20s that I taught them to ski up at Crystal, and
that's pretty cool.
And had the little ones up there. Primarily worked with the little kids. I was kind of a children's expert. I did a parent taught program where, again, let the parents work with their own kids and pick them up from the snow, as rather than having the instructors pick them up off the snow. They would learn to ski safely with their children, get them on the lift and off the lift safely, and things like that. So yeah. So again, it was a fun job while I had it. And then from there, I was working at Fox Sports Net Northwest before they became Root Television, and doing graphics for them.
Wow.
And then 9/11 happened. And I guess you could say that that was a catalyst for me to change careers one more time. I went back to school, earned my master's degree online, and started teaching high school. And I was fortunate enough to have enough credits in English and social studies that I was able to earn dual endorsements and do that. And I taught high school for 16 years, which leads me to Vella, to be honest with you. My last few months teaching was probably the most traumatic experience that I'd ever been through.
Why?
I ran into a cohort of students that honestly just didn't want to learn. This was pre-COVID, just in the months prior to COVID happening for the rest of us. And while I had plenty of the good kids, the kids that definitely I could relate to, I don't know if there was something in the water in this area or not, but I had a number of students, even my pre-AP students, that just simply didn't want to do any work.
What's pre-AP?
Advanced pre-AP, so advanced placement. So I was a teacher who taught AP Seminar, which is a research-based writing class, and then I had mostly taught a combined class called American Studies that was US history and American literature combined, and a really fabulous class to teach.
Ooh,
but our district decided that our high school needed to take that and move and realign our curriculum so that US history was a junior level class where it had been a sophomore level class, to pull apart so it was no longer a combined class. And so we were going through a transition year, and that transition year was a transition in all kinds of ways. Like I said, I worked with some students that just simply didn't want to be students. And I don't know, again, I've done a lot of soul searching to why things ended up the way they do. And I'm not one of those folks who love to hear someone say, well, everything happens for a reason. Perhaps it does. It's hard to know the plan along the way, but again, I found that I actually had to step away from the classroom. And the reasons I stepped away from the classroom are incorporated into my first part of An Operator's Daughter. So the experiences that my main character go through in the classroom of being harassed did happen to myself and others.
As a teacher.
As a teacher. But again, so I started writing after stepping away from the classroom in December 2019, and it started out as a memoir. Again, as a teacher, my last assignment for the year for my students was always to have them write about an experience that changed them, their own kind of mini memoir, and to think more about the change that happened. So some students would write about very happy things, you know, scoring the winning goal in a soccer game, or going on a camping trip, or even climbing Mount Hood with their family. And then other students would write about some things that had some real trauma in their lives. And I finally had to put kind of rules in place for my students because I wanted them to present these memoirs at the end of the year, to have some empowerment, to show some growth. And there were some times that I had to shut them down. I had a 2 of 3 triplets who had moved over from the east side of our state, who, when they got to me, had been in gangs, and they had come to live with an aunt over here in this area. And gang initiation for a young woman is unfortunately gang rape by the male members of the gang. And they wrote about it. And at that point in time, again, yes, I see your eyebrows going up to your hairline. That was something that that was the first time I'd ever even thought that this memoir project not only was, cathartic, something that you could use to be healing, but I had to put some limits in place of what they could write about, because I couldn't have those young women get up in front of the classroom and talk about it. But we again found some counseling support for them to deal with it. But so I guess that's what I did, is I took on the memoir as a way for myself to heal from what I'd been going through for the first part of the school year, and why I had to step away from education for my own, I guess you could say, not only personal safety, but my own mental health. And I like I said, I started it that way, and I found that it wasn't really doing what I needed it to do for me. It was too close. It was too personal. It was too painful. And so one morning I woke up and there was Ashton McAllister in my mind, with a complete backstory, with the nuances of all the things that you need to make for a good story and a good character. And through her, I was able to, I guess, process what had happened to me in the classroom, why I stepped
Wow.
away, and I allowed her, I guess you could say, to triumph over the situation. And as she got stronger, so did I. And some 18 months later, I was back to gainful employment, working in an environment that I would have never gravitated to if I had not gone through the situation. I am an education counselor at Joint Base Lewis McChord on the Army side of things. So what I'm called an ACES counselor, the Army Continuing Education System. And I teach active duty service members how to use their military education benefits. I work with their spouses and sometimes their teenage children to, again, find the right college situation for them. And I've even had to teach some math, which is not my thing, up in their basic skills education program. So active duty service members can raise their GT scores and change MOS. And from there, again, sometimes I'll even be working with some veterans who come in and use our educational services, again, to get them into college using their GI Bill benefits.
That's very cool.
So those are things that I don't think I would have ever done if the situation hadn't happened to me, and I hadn't found a way of processing through it and landed in an amazing, supportive environment.
Which is Vella.
Which is not just Vella, but again, the military community.
Oh,
My character is a Navy brat. Again, I work with active duty Army, but there you probably see that there's a lot of the situations that I've learned about in this resilient community that, yes, I continue to put into my storyline and my characters. So I find inspiration every day doing that.
that's super cool. Well, okay, so we have the operator's daughter. Do you have plans on carrying this character forward with her life? I know that. Any other
I
Vellas?
do. There are a couple of other Vellas. Again, our family has had a cabin over in Yellowstone country since I was born, so for 58 years. And so I have a Vella that I have been in development and blocking out that basically uses the Teton Valley as its backdrop. And one of the things that I used to do when I was teaching high school is I coached the Daffodil Princess candidates in my school. I mean, others coach softball, others coach soccer. No, I coached princess candidates. And again, it gets rather competitive. you know that teenage girls can either be very supportive of each other, or they could be row, catfight kind of thing. So I
My
could say that
experience with teenage girls is they're a bunch of bamboo pit vipers.
well, in this case, yes, the one that I have in development has a bit of that going on. The claws are out, and they're all vying for their school's basically a princess. But again, instead of setting it in the Puyallup Valley where they have the daffodil princesses, no, it's going to be set in Teton Valley. And there'll be some fun with that. I have another one that's kind of cloak and dagger, drawing on my time in television production, where an editor ends up in the middle of a crime and has to be hidden away, go into witness protection. So that's one
Very
that's in
cool.
development. And I have another one that, again, I've been blocking out, that is about my kind of, I would say, youth in the area around where I grew up in Renton, Washington. I grew up in a community that had a community pool, and our life focused and was around that community pool. And, a fun fact on that is the community pool actually has some records of who over the years swam fastest, from their 8 and unders. And they haven't really updated it with anything above the 8 and unders. But in 1972, there was a freestyle relay team that still holds their record for the fastest swim of a free relay. And my name is on that relay.
That's cool.
So again, I'm not that I'm going to be autobiographical in it, although there will be some elements, but yes, that's kind of going to be the basis of a Vella as well at some point in time. All of these things, again, are very much in the developmental stage, as is an operator's daughter part 4, which I haven't come up with a name for yet.
Right. Very cool. And an operator, what does that mean?
Well, when
the SEAL teams go out,
when the SEAL teams go out, first of all, when you meet a Navy SEAL, rarely will they tell you they are a Navy SEAL.
yeah, they shouldn't.
They shouldn't. And even when they're retired, they don't necessarily refer to themselves as serving as a Navy SEAL unless it suits their purposes. They're out on the lecture circuit. They're writing their own books. They're producing the television show. And yes, I would say that, yeah, I'm very much a fan of SEAL Team that moved from CBS to Paramount, unfortunately.
So an operator is
actually what they call themselves. A Navy SEAL is an operator, a special operator, as in special ops.
I see.
So they operate.
I see.
So when they're sent out on a mission, an operation, they operate. So they refer to themselves as operators. I'm fortunate, again, on JBLM to work around some of the folks who are in the elite units there too, and to help them with their education paths and what colleges they're going to. And they also will refer to themselves as operators, not as something else. Again, yes, Navy SEALs are sailors, and Green Berets are soldiers, as are Army Rangers. Again, they're probably the only group that will refer to themselves as Rangers when they talk about themselves. But again, whether it's the Air Force pararescue, which they know are known as PJs, the Marines, the MARSOC group, again, they operate.
And so
they're clandestine operators. They are operators.
Oh, that's good to know. All right. I'm sure everybody wants to know that.
So that is why she's an operator's daughter. She is a Navy SEAL's daughter, and she grew up in a situation where she needed to keep secrets, so that her father's security clearance would be kept, and you just don't necessarily talk about what you've done. But Ashton, again, like many fictional characters, she lost her mother. And her mother had been an intelligence officer in the Navy, again. So there's a backstory that will play out with her mother's journals when she's finally able to get a hold of them and learn about how her parents got together. But it was a fraternization situation. They should not have had a relationship. And her mother gave up her career as an officer, basically so that her father could remain a Navy SEAL. because they could not have both been in the Navy and married to one another and had a relationship with one another. But then her mother will go back into service and lose her life later with the CIA. And so there's a lot of, again, secrets with that. Ashton has no idea what her mother's mission was. She has no idea why she was in a position where she would lose her life. And because, again, it was a CIA mission, there's not a whole lot of answers. Those answers will, again, evolve and come out in little bits and pieces throughout the series as Ashton comes to terms with what her mother's sacrifice was. And again, whether it's going to devastate her or whether it's going to make her feel like she's got the strength to get through the same situations. I think in some ways as authors, we're sadists. We throw our characters into all kinds of, I would say, hot water and situations they have to get themselves out of. And I've definitely done that with poor Ashton, not only in dealing with the harassment she endured at the high school, but then having to deal with the same kinds of things in a different way in her college years. And then, of course, as she forms her own relationship with a Navy SEAL at the beginning of his career, because she can't get away from the life. And she gets more drawn into that life herself. So again, I keep throwing situations at her, and Ashton seems to find a way of getting out of them and growing along the way.
Wow.
But it's painful. It can be painful and it can be triumphant.
Wonderful story. So it's An Operator's Daughter, you guys. And of course, the links will be in the description of this video. And along with writing Vellas usually comes reading Vellas. So have you read any that you'd like to tell us about that you think are good and like to tell us a little bit about? I know that you are in Eric Eisen's Vella's Florigium group.
I am. And the anthology project has been super fun. It's pushed me outside of my comfort zone. Again, I typically write coming of age, action adventure, drama, romance. That's my genre. With our Velians Florigium group, we have been doing primarily, I would say, psychological horror. And so that has completely taken me out of my comfort zone. And it's been fun. It's been a real stretch for me as an author. I've been able to, again, incorporate, I think, some of the things that are part of my style into the group's work. And again, if you'd like to have a kind of an idea of what I write, you can do it as a short story at a time with the Florigium group. We're always looking for new members. So if there are other Vella writers out there who are interested in stretching their imaginations, and you're welcome to join us. We're working on a new anthology project that will come out sometime in July. I will admit to Eric right now that yes, my stories are still also in development, but I'll pound them out. Again, I guess you could say in some ways I have a gift for once a story comes into my head, it's out within about a couple of hours and then polished within a few days and then sent off to him to do some editing for me. And I'm quite happy to do some editing for him and the others of the group.
So that's another place we can see your writing.
Exactly.
But other than that, what have you read?
Well, oh my gosh, way too many of them. I would say that the one that keeps me coming back right now, it's kind of my obsession before I turn in for the night, is Penelope Wright's The Good Part of Evil. It's a story where a poor 17, 18-year-old senior in high school whose mother is incarcerated because she cannot stay away from drinking and driving. She works at a convenience store in the nights and evenings, and that's how she's surviving. And every night, some motorcycle rider kind of drives by and stops at the pumps, but he doesn't ever come inside the convenience store part of the gas station. And every single time, the pump price is $6.66. So finally one night, Sabrina shuts off the pump and makes him come inside so he cannot use the credit card. And that's where she meets the devil's son. But the devil's son is not evil. He's actually a pretty, I would say, supportive, protective entity in her life. And I've just been dying to see how this will come out. And Penelope loves to post an episode pretty much every day.
Oh, wow.
And so again, this is before I go to bed, I will go back to her serial and find out what's happening with Cutter and Sabrina.
Oh, nice.
Sabrina,
and nice.
It's also set in the Pacific Northwest, as is my serial. So again, that's one that is really, I would say, interested me that way.
So it's Sabrina and who?
Sabrina and Cutter. Cutter is the devil's own son.
Yeah.
When it comes to that.
Yeah, I'm having, I got the devil's son in one of mine too. So mine's name is Artem.
Artem.
Got a very Russian bent, like everything else I do.
The other one that I'm desperately waiting for more episodes right now, she hasn't put any out for a while, is Victoria Wright's Her Dark Secrets.
Yeah, I've heard and say that.
Again, as a former English teacher, I guess I'm really drawn to super good writing, and Her Dark Secrets is as good as you will find in any literature posted, not only online, but would be something that I would probably, if I was still teaching high school, recommend to my students to read. It's rich, and the characters are rich. The content is very adult oriented. It deals with, again, some family dysfunction and incest and things in a way, though, that isn't graphic, but actually helps you kind of understand the whole fact that families on the outside look perfect, but on the inside, there is probably never the perfect family. But in the case of her characters, this family is about as scary and as dark as you can get. And at the same time, she's got a little girl that she doesn't necessarily want raised around the family, but she's had to go back for a funeral and found out that she's actually inherited the ranch that the family depends upon for their own livelihood and for a place to live. So again, Her Dark Secrets, Victoria Wright's Her Dark Secrets is another one that I'm waiting. But there are all kinds of fabulous Vellas out there. I would also say, because I'm more willing to go out there and read the work of others in the hopes that perhaps they'll enjoy mine as well. I've read an awful lot of Vellas lately, and again, there are some fabulous good writing out there, and there's some that, well, you can see, just like me, they're probably in the developmental stage of things and have some perfecting of their craft to do as they go. But again, Vella is a fabulous platform. There is something for everybody on there. Raining Embers is another one.
Yeah.
I love Raining Embers, and
I forget who writes that.
Oh, I would have to make my screen a little larger here.
I'll look real quick here.
Real quick.
Yeah, I can find it.
Because not everybody writes under their name. And I actually do write under my name. I guess I would say that I've written, I wanted to be known as myself. I've wanted to do this for so long that I was one who wanted to actually write under my name. And so Raining Embers is under C.L. Silas. And it is a plucky story of Astrid, and actually the neighbor child next door, her name is Astrid. And so I can't help but think of this plucky child growing up and becoming one who actually makes friends with a dragon and is stuck, again, dealing with the fact that she was considered to be a slave in this kind of society, and now the monarch's son has decided that she's going to be his wife, and she's a very reluctant partner in all of this. But they're at a point right now that they're on a ship, and they're with a ship with a dragon and a storm, and again, I can't wait to see what's going to happen with Raining Embers as well.
Wow. Well, those sound like fascinating stories. Well, it sounds like you know what you like. So as such, if you were suddenly handed the keys to the ownership of Vella and could do anything you wanted, had an unlimited budget, what would you do to change things, if anything?
I think I will express the same frustration that other authors have had, is that we would really love to see some advertising out there for Amazon. But as my family and a few handful of others have been my biggest supporters in getting through my behemoth of my Vellas, because my Vellas are longer than most, not only in episode length, but also in the number of episodes. There have been some readers who've stuck through it, and I know it's a very expensive way to read. My father gripes about my mother's tokens every single week, but it's a very pricey way of reading a book. It
Is
really
it?
is. It's an
I
incredibly
see these,
pricey
they're a
way of
penny a
reading a book.
piece. They're a penny a piece, basically.
They are, but again, that's great if your episodes are hanging around, I would say, that the 6 to 12 token mark, which seems to be about the sweet spot. And so I'll keep that in mind with my new Vella projects. But I never wrote in a way of thinking about tokens when I wrote my episodes. Again, I come from the kind of world of television production, so I tend to write scene by scene. And so I want, it kills me when I have to actually divide a scene because of the word count. And the word count for Vella is 5,000 per episode. But a 5,000 episode is going to cost you 50 tokens.
Right.
And so again,
50 cents.
mhm.
So 50 cents that somebody's bitching about.
But I have Vellas that are in the 300 episode mark.
Right.
So again, it's an expensive way to read. It really
It would
is.
be. It would
And
be, I guess.
then if you think about it, there are serial platforms out there, and the first one I looked at in publishing at all was Wattpad, which of course you publish typically for free. There are some paid Wattpad writers out there, but when I first started looking for an avenue for what I had been working on to publish it, I started thinking that serialization is kind of how I write anyway. I typically leave a bit of a hook or a cliffhanger at the end of my episodes that draws you into the next. It's just my style of writing. And I didn't want to go with Wattpad because I'd heard that a lot of intellectual property had just disappeared off the site, was being published, that somebody else was making money off it in other parts of the world. So
Yeah.
that was not a good way. Other serial sites you have to apply to become a writer, and it can be very difficult for a brand new writer, brand new to publishing, to break into a site, the Kiss or the Dream or the Patron or others of those. And I know that there are some Vella writers who also publish on those platforms.
Mm-hmm.
But Vella came along for me, I guess you could say, at just the right time. Amazon announced it about, I don't know, February, March. I don't think I came across it until May. And so in June, when they first started letting people start uploading episodes, I jumped on that, set up everything, and started uploading episodes, so that as soon as we went live in July, I had, I think, 10 episodes ready to go, ready to be downloaded. And I had planned on just putting them out 1 or 2 a week. And instead, the few readers that again gravitated towards my work said, when are you putting out another episode? They were kind of pushing the envelope. And so with my Vellas, I've been releasing 20 episodes a week. So yes, I'm prolific and have been pushing it out there. But I also had a lot of content in being home and writing for 18 months while I went through and looked for another job, looked for another career path, healed from the experiences that kept me from staying in the classroom and becoming and teaching and being an educator. So again, I had a lot of content out there to edit and publish along the way. But again, I felt that Amazon, the big name behind it, was going to be something that would be a good thing as a writer. I mean, who gets larger than Amazon? There probably isn't one. The fact that it was going to be only open to US authors to start with, I thought was probably also a good thing. Having done a little bit of um, exploration into serial fiction, I found out that it was bigger in other parts of the world, and there are writers out there that really pump out content for some of those platforms
Yeah.
and do that. So I felt like, it being a new platform, maybe I would have my opportunity to be, a little fish in a big pond, but maybe not quite such a minnow compared to being on the other sites as it being new. I guess I threw in my hat like everybody else did to
Right.
try and make something that way. And for me, again, it's a big accomplishment just to see that I've actually been able to publish anything. I
Yeah,
mean,
it's
I
cool.
have to pat myself on the back that again, the bonuses have been nice. It's kept me interested in continuing to write. The royalties do again add up over time, which is nice, but they're nowhere near what you need to make a living as a writer at this point in time.
Not off of one, no.
No, definitely not. And I'm not in a position with my day job to just, basically pump out many Vellas and episodes for many Vellas at this point
Right.
in time. I'm
Right.
hoping that at some point in time, yes, certainly I'd love to do that, along with taking what I've written, paring it down to more of a novel format
Well, we're
and putting
going
it
off
out there
like
as an ebook.
we're going off. That's what I was going to ask you. When is that happening?
So I have first two parts of my series are completed. So, and it's been well past the 30 days that I would need to edit them and put them into novel format. And what's kept me from doing it at this point in time is just time, because I've been again publishing and uploading episodes for part 3, and will want to continue that with part 4 and some of the other projects. So yes, when I have the time, I will probably edit them, pare them down, not use every bit of content that has been out there on the serial
Mhm.
for the novel form, and do that. But again, along with that factor, and I'm new to this, and I do a lot of, I guess, painful research before I jump into anything. um, Kindle Unlimited is definitely a place that I would like to land. I work amongst people who actually have the subscriptions to Kindle Unlimited, so they've told me that they really are waiting to see my work pop up on there before they access it.
Mhm.
And I know that there are other authors on the Vella format who probably are getting the same kind of push that way.
Yes.
But when you can have a subscription to something, and right now, Kindle Unlimited has a free subscription for 2 months as a trial basis.
Right. And it's $10
It,
a month thereafter.
yeah, thereafter, and $10 a month, honestly, is not a bad, way of doing things if you consider that you're paying that for Netflix, or you're paying that for Disney Plus, or you're paying it for the subscription services that are streaming video.
Yeah.
I don't think that's out of the question.
It's a good value.
It's a good value, but right now, again, I'm kind of hearing, especially from my own mother, that again, our platform, Kindle Vella, is a very pricey way to read, especially if you're an avid reader.
Yes. Now I've heard that. And there are people who, they read 20 books a month. And
Mhm.
they have to have some kind of subscription or use the library, dude. But
Exactly. And a lot of people do that. I guess, you know, I'm also rather new to social media. When I was teaching, I stayed away from Facebook, and other than just having a LinkedIn profile, which I really hadn't done much with,
Mhm.
um, I really had stayed off of it because as a teacher, you're discouraged to connect with your students, especially your current students. I didn't go on Facebook until I was actually out of teaching. So yes, I've connected with a lot of my former students and my former colleagues, and colleagues that I've worked with in television or other places. Now, again, the community of authors for Kindle Vella, I think, is second to none. Um, by and large, everybody is very supportive of one another, and we've had to be. I think that the avid readers on the platform right now are other authors. And I think most of us are genuinely enjoying each other's work that way. But it is an expensive way to read. I mean, I'm hooked into a number of serials. I mentioned 3 of them, but but I could probably go on with a list of 20 or more right now that
Oh,
I keep up
wow.
with, that I really enjoy the storyline. I really enjoy the characters. I'm really very much sucked in, and it's fun to again explore the new ones that are coming out all the time. But it's an expensive way to read, so I'm thinking, a subscription model for Vella might be something that would entice more readers to stick with the platform.
Oh, now you talking now. You
Yeah.
talking now.
And I'm sure right now
Yeah.
there's a bunch of Kindle Vella authors who probably want to slap me silly that way.
No, there
Uh,
aren't. I'm sure somebody's going, yeah, yeah.
but
Because
again,
yeah,
as a reader of the platform, certainly if I could pay a flat fee of $10 a month, I would probably be consuming the work of others at a much higher rate than I'm doing now. And I am definitely reloading my tokens about every 10 days right now, to keep up with the work of others.
yeah. Now
So that's
listen,
where my
I want
profits are going.
you do know that at the end of the year, every penny you spent on Vella tokens can be charged off.
Well, as an author, I certainly can. I don't know that I can do the same with my family's tokens, though,
No, no, no.
or my
No,
fans.
no,
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 they're
no. No,
no,
I'm
but
simply saying for yourself. I look
but
at it
I
as a business expense,
exactly.
and I
So
have to spend that to keep up with what's going on in the genres that I write in.
mhm. And again, I don't begrudge the tokens that I'm spending on others' work at all. I really don't. Like I said, I think within the first 3 or 4 episodes, and I usually give other authors at least 4, to jump into to a paid episode before I decide whether this is something I
Yeah,
want to continue with,
right.
or whether it's really not for me. And so if I'm hooked within those first 4, yes, I often will keep going
Yes.
and really again enjoy their work. Like I said, there's some really good authors on the platform, and I feel a bit like a snob in that way because I taught literature in high school. I guess you can say I've been conditioned to know what good literature is.
Yeah.
And so when I find it, I'm typically one who sticks with it.
Yeah.
If it keeps me coming back, if the characters keep me coming back, yes, I'm going to stick with it and follow it through to the end that way, or as far as it will go.
Yeah. Well, I
But
agree.
I guess I'm hoping for a subscription model for Vella in the same way that they have for KU.
That would be so cool. And I think that's the first time anybody has brought that up. And I've done, criminy, I think I've got 60 of these interviews under my belt now. You are the first person who has talked about a subscription service for Vella.
Well, I think it's probably because I'm typically a broad thinker. Yes, I get into the minute details when I'm writing, but when it comes to kind of deciding what's going on with society, what's going on with marketing, again, having worked in television production for many years before I became an educator, you have to think about why people watch television. And while I worked in sports television production, I was really kind of blown away, having worked for the networks that I did, that you do not approach a game and you think the game itself is the storyline, but there's a lot of pre-production that goes into, say, a football game. You have to understand, what kind of the drama that they're building up to when they're talking about this game coming up. I mean, it's not just about the players on the field, but again, how the coaches are interacting, and again, the situation with the crowds, and what kind of societal issues are coming to the forefront, whether again it's the Black Lives Matter movement or other things. But there's a lot of building of these storylines that go into the production of a game that you sit down and watch that goes for an hour of play. You have a huge amount of pre-production in the graphics that you're going to show during a game, to show again, has a quarterback been overcoming injury, or again was a running back suspended for some reason, or just coming off again injured reserve. There's a ton of storyline, a ton of drama that is built up in the pre-production of a game. And you think about it, well, are people watching sports necessarily just for the sport itself? Or are they hooked in coming back to watch the game because of the drama of it? And I think in a lot of ways, serial fiction is like that. You know, you're having to build up what that drama is and what is people are going to come back for. And we see it again in the subscription services. There are people who just kind of got out of not watching television at all, but they'll binge an entire series of Yellowstone on Peacock or Paramount. Again, people wait for the episodes to come out for whatever they're doing. So again, what we're doing is providing, I think, a streaming service, but where you actually are reading it yourself. And in my mind, I always wanted to read the book before I ever saw the movie version of anything. And sometimes the movie versions don't necessarily live up to my own imagination of what I see the characters involved with on the pages or on the screen of the book when you're reading it.
Right. Disney has purchased the intellectual property for one of my very favorite stories in the whole world. It is a YA story, Bartimaeus by Jonathan Stroud. I don't know if you've ever heard of it. It's incredible.
I will have to put that one on my list as well.
But I don't think that any production company will ever live up to what
the book
that
itself
puts in your head. Because I mean, it takes Harry Potter, throws it on the ground and wipes its feet on it. You know, Harry Potter sucks compared to this. You're just like, oh my God, if they could just get this on the screen. But I don't know that they can. And I know Disney's bought it and they're just sitting on it, have been for years now.
Well, again, this is a typical book. My niece, one of the books she turned me on when she was a teenager was the Golden Compass series.
Very
and that's
good.
Another one that when you read the book, it's so vivid in your mind.
Yes.
And now they've tried a couple of different times to move it to the screen, and they failed miserably in some ways.
They did all right with the one Sam Elliott was in.
Yes, but still, in my mind, it was not at all what the book itself was about.
But they never will be, Laurie.
Probably not.
No, because once you get into making a movie, as you know from having worked in the industry, you start thinking about the tropes that you need to pander to in order to get the audience buy-in. And that is where your mind goes, not to the joy of the story or the richness of the story. No. It goes straight to the commercials and the after merchandise.
And I would agree with that. You know, I honestly, I love going to a theme park. My parents, I'm sorry, raised me to be a theme park commando like themselves. I will get to a point, you know, after a decade of not being in one, where my husband will attest to the fact that I start pushing for it. It's like an addiction. You have to go feed that addiction every so often, and you know, ride a roller coaster, go through the themed rides, and again, my parents, again, even with my father not being able to get around as much, they were just down at Disneyland just last month, getting their theme park fix, because that's what they need to do to kind of to survive their life. And you know, you'll never basically be able to be immersed in the storyline, but I think that's what people want. And I guess that's what I've tried to do when I've written, is to try and make the fiction that I am putting out there not necessarily possible, but plausible.
Right.
Again, going back to my serial for a moment, one of the things that I think when I woke up that day and with the storyline in my head is I started again going online and researching that, is this possible? Is this real? Is this something that could happen? In part 2 of my serial, my character will go out as a photographer and actually photograph SEAL team training exercises in the Puget Sound area. Well, do you realize that the Navy SEALs actually do actually have had training exercises in our area? I found actually an entire presentation to the state of Washington and how they would use their state parks for training exercises.
Oh dear God.
And including all the rules of engagement they had to have with the sea life and not treading on sensitive sea life on the shorelines and things like that, all the environmental impact statements. And again, to me, that's the kind of research I do. Yes, it's far-fetched that a Navy SEAL's girlfriend, you know, taking a photography class is going to go out there taking pictures of this, but
Pretty.
again, it's plausible. Not necessarily possible, but plausible.
Sure.
And I've gone into great detail again in her experiences in doing it.
Yeah. I mean, if it weren't for the two guys that knocked her to the ground and took her camera and smashed it on the ground, it's plausible.
Yes, exactly.
As my Army son-in-law would say. Yeah, sure, Mom. Sure.
Well, she's invited along, so that doesn't happen to her. But
oh, good.
But
All right,
but
then.
again, the fact that, you know, I've tried very hard to make the whole situations and scenarios that she goes through very much something that is possible. You know,
Yes.
that it could happen. It really could
it's
happen.
not so far-fetched that it is not physically possible on our earthly plane.
Exactly.
Yes.
So that's where I'm at with things. I want it to actually happen, you know, kind of thing.
So we have your suggestions for improving Vella, which are solid, rock solid. We've got more advertising from Zahn. And besides just putting a poster up of 6-shooter and a shifter up on New York Times Square, we would like a little bit more advertising than that encompasses the rest of us assholes out there trying to write, make something out of ourselves. All right. Then 2, which is probably the best I've ever heard, subscription serviced for Vella. Or you could get like an enhanced one and have both. Like you could have KU and Vella for maybe $15.95 a month or
there you go.
$16.95 a month.
That would be a price point, I think.
Yeah, sever that sucker off. Keep it right there with the streaming stuff. Keep it right there with Netflix, right there with Disney, you know.
Well, and the nice thing about a Vella, again, and I've been told this, is that, you know, the episodes that, again, even if they're a lengthy episode, one like my episodes that fall in the, you know, the 20 to even 40 token amounts, you're standing in line in a grocery store, you can get through an episode. You're sitting around waiting for your kids to come through with their softball or baseball practice, and you can get through several episodes. You can, again, be sitting at the doctor's office waiting to be called back and to have your blood drawn or whatever, and you can get through several episodes. Again, it's a really convenient way to read.
It is.
I know that I spend my lunch break usually with a Vella or 2, again, keeping up with episodes. So again, where I probably wouldn't have ever been fan of reading on a screen, the fact that it's so portable and you don't have to haul around a dog-eared book with you is a really convenient way to read. And those stories, again, there's some really good authors out there who've really perfected, I think, the serial craft, that within an episode you feel like you've gone somewhere within that each episode, and you're ready for more.
Yep, I agree. Well, we have, I believe, come to the end, and the very last thing we have for you to say, Ms. Laurie, is what would you like to say to the folks who are clicking your link and reading your Vellas for the first time, like they will be doing after they watch this video and click the link to go there? What would you like to say to them?
First of all, I'd like to say thank you for actually checking my little Ashton's story out. Again, her Vella, her story is actually her journal. She records, again, as her life basically is a way to make sense of her surroundings and her experiences, and you'll see a lot of personal growth through it. You'll see a lot of overcoming challenges and obstacles that have been put into her path, and I will promise you that she will emerge resilient and a very strong female's character. The first in the series is very clean in its language and its content. It doesn't go anywhere other than PG-13, although she does endure some sexual harassment in the high school, as I did as a teacher. So again, my autobiographical experiences are part of her story. So yes, those things do happen in high school. But as she's come into her college years, the language still stays very clean. Again, Ashton was raised in Virginia, where everyone is very polite. And so she keeps her language fairly clean. But again, as she grows up and has some other experiences, it can get a bit steamy, more of the R-rated content as you go along with it. We all know that young adult literature will handle some language, it will handle some sexual situations at times. I would not be embarrassed for my high school age or college age students, former students, in reading what I have put out there, or their parents. So again, I feel like I put out a really good story. It might, again, suck you in, I hope. The few reviews I've had, one of them called my serial addicting. And again, she's not related to me, so I feel even better about that.
Hey, that's
And
awesome.
in fact, she's not even a friend. She's just somebody who came across my serial and has stuck with it and has written some good reviews for me. And again, the last one, she said, this serial is addicting and I can't wait for the episodes to come out twice a week.
That is
I guess
wonderful.
if there's just one person I'm writing for in the world, it is the gal in Florida who has done that and posted some reviews for me.
Oh, very cool. Well, that's it, folks. This is, we've come to the end of our interview with Miss Laurie here, and I hope that all of you check out The Operator's Daughter by Laurie Brandon and read her contribution to Vella's Floriagium. And I think that is the end of our interview. Miss Laurie, thank you so much.
Thank you so much for having me.
You bet. And this is Azriel signing off for Hello Vella.